Because he is taking Napoleon Hill's personal success philosophy, built for individual business people in the 1920s, to an industrial and even orbital level.
This is the ultimate stress test of these historical principles. $22 million.
And let's put this into context. For 99.9% of people, 22 million at age 27 is the finish line.
Oh, I'm retiring to a private island instantly.
Right. You buy real estate, invest in index funds, and disappear onto a beach.
Hello everyone, welcome to Catalyst Power. Today is the 5th of March, 2026, and you are joining us for a broadcast that I can describe as one of the most fascinating explorations we have undertaken to date.
Yes, today is a big and beautiful day.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Today, we are taking two seemingly completely different worlds and smashing them together to see what kind of sparks will fly.
Right. The old and the ultra new.
Exactly. On one hand, there is Napoleon Hill's timeless, almost classic philosophy of success. We are talking about his legendary 17 Principles of Success. These are concepts shaped after his interviews with Gilded Age titans like Andrew Carnegie and Thomas Edison in the early 20th century.
Industrial pioneers.
Yes, the men who dedicated their lives to building the physical world. On the other hand, there is Elon Musk's hyper-modern, trillion-dollar, undeniably historic trajectory.
It's a great contrast. The fascinating thing here is that when you look at a highly polarizing, contemporary figure like Musk through a historical and philosophical lens, it actually cuts through a lot of the daily noise.
Like the Twitter drama, the headlines?
Absolutely. We are not here to judge his tweets or take any political sides. We are using this century-old framework to take a step back from the relentless 2026 news cycle and examine the fundamental mechanics of extraordinary success.
Right. We're looking at the foundational architecture of how a single person managed to disrupt global finance, automotive transportation, the aerospace industry, and now, artificial intelligence itself.
And to do this justice, yes, we did a lot of research. We've gathered a massive pile of resources for you today.
Literally a mountain of reading.
A mountain. We are drawing directly from Napoleon Hill's classic texts, specifically the science of personal achievement, and the sometimes dense breakdowns of those 17 principles.
That can be a bit esoteric, yes.
It really can be. However, we are blending this historical text with biographies and deep dives into the operational mechanics of Musk's early ventures in Silicon Valley.
Those complex, messy affairs.
Oh, very messy. And most importantly, we are bringing this directly to the absolute cutting edge of today. We are examining the latest tech sector analyses, including that mind-boggling announcement last month about SpaceX acquiring xAI for $1.25 trillion.
To be honest, I am still trying to digest and understand that.
It's a massive event. We've also reviewed legal filings from Musk's ongoing lawsuits with OpenAI, the recent Delaware Supreme Court rulings, and the legislative text of Senate Bill 21.
We are reporting objectively on what is in these texts. We are not taking a side on politics or legal claims.
Because our mission in this deep dive is highly specific. We are going to decode how Musk's astronomical successes and his very public cutthroat conflicts map directly onto Hill's principles.
Actually, they map onto them perfectly.
It is incredible. We want to see how this framework explains his foundational mechanics, from his early days in Silicon Valley to his unique 2026 vision of orbital AI computing.
This is a roadmap not just to understand what is happening right now in the global tech landscape, but also to understand the core psychological engine driving it.
Right. I love that. We are putting the headlines aside to see the engine underneath. So, let's ignite this engine by going back to the very beginning.
If we are looking at Napoleon Hill's framework when it comes to Musk's early years, it all starts with Lesson 6.
Personal initiative.
Personal initiative. Hill defines this as the force that inspires a person to finish what they start. It is the power that initiates all action.
It is a fundamental spark. According to his texts, a person is not free until they learn to think for themselves and gain the courage to act on their own without waiting for outside prompting or permission.
At its core, it is about recognizing structural inefficiencies in the world and attacking them before anyone else does.
Attacking is the right word.
Absolutely. When we apply this to Musk's early years, we immediately see the massive friction and the sparks that this kind of initiative creates.
Right? And here I want to push back against the mythology a bit, because the popular narrative often paints that smooth cinematic version.
But when you read the actual biographies, you see that his initiative is often incredibly messy and fraught with conflict.
Oh, definitely. Let's skip the classic childhood stories and jump straight to 1995.
The Stanford decision.
Yes. He gets accepted into a PhD program at Stanford to study energy physics. He gets there and, deciding that the internet will be much more important, drops out 2 days later.
2 days?
2 days. The dot-com boom is just barely starting to rumble, and he isn't waiting for permission from the outside. He brings his brother Kimball along, and they found Zip2.
And Zip2 is a fascinating case study in terms of raw initiative. They sleep in a small rented office in Palo Alto and shower at the local YMCA.
Classic startup hustle, but taken to the extremes.
Absolutely. The product itself was a manifestation of acting on your own thinking. They took raw map data and created a digital city guide for newspapers.
That sounds obvious now. But back then, they had to go door to door and convince local businesses that the internet was a real thing.
However, this is exactly where Hill's principle collides with reality. The sources detail the massive internal conflicts within Zip2.
Musk's intense, unyielding management style even led to physical wrestling matches on the office floor.
Right, over technical decisions.
Mostly over control. He wanted full control of the code. Ultimately, he was forced to accept a CEO when Compaq acquired the company for $307 million in 1999.
Musk walked away with $22 million.
And let's put this into context a bit. For 99.9% of people, $22 million at age 27 is the finish line.
Oh, I'm retiring to a private island instantly.
Right. You buy real estate, invest in index funds, and disappear onto a beach.
But here we see the pathological nature of extreme personal initiative. He takes more than half of that wealth and immediately pours it into X.com.
He decides to disrupt the traditional banking sector.
This is an extremely audacious move. He knew nothing about financial regulations at the time. He just saw an inefficiency.
The fact that transferring money took days and required physical infrastructure?
Exactly. And he decided to build an online bank. Ultimately, they merge with Confinity, a rival startup founded by Max Levchin and Peter Thiel.
And this merger gives us one of the most revealing perspectives on the human cost of initiative.
The operating system war.
Yes, the infamous operating system war. Musk and Levchin got into a massive existential disagreement over PayPal's foundational architecture.
A complete clash of philosophy.
While Musk stubbornly wanted to rewrite the entire backend using Microsoft Windows NT, Levchin argued from the philosophy of Unix-based systems, developer speed, and scaling.
They couldn't agree.
Biographies detail how this turned into a literal arm wrestling match over the core architecture of a multi-million-dollar financial platform.
It's crazy to even think about.
It is. Musk wins, forces the transition to Windows, and according to engineers, this causes massive coding delays and system crashes the following year.
But wait a minute. Let's look at this through our framework. Is this really personal initiative in the Napoleon Hill sense, or just destructive hubris?
That's a perfect question, because Hill explicitly warns against acting without specialized knowledge.
In the PayPal scenario, Musk's blindness to specialized knowledge regarding system stability was corrected by the market, or in this case, by board intervention.
Swiftly.
Very swiftly. His refusal to compromise led directly to a board coup. They ousted him as CEO while he was on a flight to Australia.
It's a brutal lesson. But the crucial point is this: he accepted it and held onto his shares.
When eBay acquired PayPal in 2002, he netted around $200 million.
He took the capital generated by that initial spark and moved on.
And what he did next is perhaps the purest example of personal initiative in his career. He takes this $200 million and wants to breathe new life into space exploration.
Right. The Mars Oasis idea. He wants to buy a rocket and land a small greenhouse on Mars. Just a massive PR stunt.
A very expensive stunt.
Right. So in late 2001, he goes to Russia to try and buy refurbished intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. He wants to use these missiles to launch this payload. The sources detail these meetings in Moscow. They literally laugh at him.
They treated him like a joke.
They treated him like a naive tourist with deep pockets. They artificially inflated the price to $8 million for a single rocket.
They effectively ignored his serious offers.
Tying this back to the big picture, most people would have given up at that point and gone home.
Reasonable people would have.
Exactly. However, Hill's principle dictates that initiative requires your own thinking. You don't accept the boundaries set by gatekeepers.
On the return flight from Moscow, Musk is quietly working on a massive spreadsheet on his laptop.
Here is where things get really interesting. He starts applying first principles thinking.
Breaking it down to its atoms.
Literally. He broke the rocket down to its raw materials: aluminum, titanium, copper. He realized that the cost of these materials was only about 2% of a typical rocket sales price.
The rest was just corporate bloat, legacy manufacturing processes, and a lack of vertical integration.
His initiative led him to a profound conclusion. He didn't need to buy rockets from the Russians. He could build them himself, both cheaper and faster.
Which sounds crazy to say out loud.
Completely crazy. But he took $100 million of his own fortune, founded SpaceX, didn't wait for permission from the old-school aerospace establishment, and started building orbital-class rockets from scratch in a warehouse.
However, as Napoleon Hill famously summarized, personal initiative can only take you so far. To achieve world-changing goals, you have to leverage the minds of others.
Absolutely. Which brings us perfectly to Hill's second lesson: the Mastermind Alliance.
A very important concept. Hill defines this as the coordination of two or more minds, blending their knowledge and effort in perfect harmony to achieve a shared goal.
Hill argues that this alliance creates an independent, synergistic supermind that is more powerful than the sum of its parts. It can reach levels that no individual acting alone could ever achieve.
This is exponential power.
Right? It allows a group to achieve results exponentially faster and greater than an individual acting alone could.
Now, when you look at Musk's career, you see that he constantly builds masterful mastermind groups around himself, consisting of extreme domain experts.
Look at SpaceX. He hired Tom Mueller to design the original rocket architecture and build the Merlin engine.
He always surrounds himself with immense talent, trusts them, and shares responsibilities with them.
Always. However, perhaps the most culturally and historically significant mastermind alliance Musk ever formed happened in 2015.
And this was shaped not by a desire for profit, but by a deep existential fear regarding artificial intelligence.
In the mid-2010s, deep learning was making massive leaps. Musk was deeply concerned that AGI not aligned with human values could literally pose an extinction-level threat to humanity.
He wanted to prevent a godlike intelligence from being developed in a closed black box.
Exactly. He needed a counterweight to act as a balancing force against corporate labs. So he formed a mastermind alliance.
He gets together with Sam Altman, and they tap into a massive network of talent and capital.
But the real key to this alliance was the researchers on the ground.
They hired a group of top-tier deep learning PhD students, led by Ilya Sutskever.
Ilya Sutskever is crucial here. Musk later referred to him as the linchpin for the organization's success.
The linchpin. Sutskever was the co-inventor of AlexNet, the neural network that kickstarted the modern deep learning revolution in 2012. Convincing him to leave Google was a massive victory.
You had Altman's operational genius, Sutskever's unparalleled technical vision, and Musk's capital and sheer willpower.
And they founded OpenAI. Now, according to Hill, the absolute glue of any mastermind alliance is the shared goal.
If you don't have perfect harmony, the mastermind fails.
It shatters. In 2015, OpenAI's shared goal was incredibly clear and highly publicized: to develop AGI safely and operate as a nonprofit organization.
It was intended to be an open-source counterweight to Google's walled garden. Musk committed $1 billion to the project and initially contributed around $50 million of his own capital.
They had the capital, they had the specialized knowledge, and they had a noble, shared goal. It looked like the ultimate mastermind.
In Hill's terms, it was the ultimate mastermind. However, Hill issues a vital, almost prophetic warning about the mastermind alliance.
What is that warning?
That it is fragile. It must operate in perfect harmony. The moment the shared vision cracks, the moment ego, fear, or changing circumstances alter the goals for even a single member, the synergy evaporates and the alliance collapses.
And when we look at the historical record, that is exactly what happened. The harmony shattered.
Yes, it did. And it shattered because of the brutal realities of physics and economics. By 2018, OpenAI researchers faced a massive compute problem.
The hardware side of the business.
Right? The amount of compute required to train these models was skyrocketing. Google was developing its own custom silicon chips and spending billions of dollars on compute.
There was no way OpenAI could remain competitive as a nonprofit organization sustained solely by donations.
So Musk looks at the landscape and panics. He believes his mastermind is falling dangerously behind.
So, according to the source documents, Musk proposes a radical change to the shared goal. He tells the board that the current nonprofit model is a dead end. His solution: fully integrate OpenAI into Tesla.
He argued that Tesla was the only entity with the resources and engineering talent capable of beating Google in this hardware war.
He wanted to use Tesla's massive valuation to fund OpenAI's research.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. Was he making a rational business move to save the AGI mission, or did he want absolute control over the world's most important technology?
That is the billion-dollar question. Because the rest of the board, led by Altman and Sutskever, said an absolute no. They saw a hostile takeover attempt. They believed that merging with Tesla was a fundamental betrayal of their original nonprofit open-source mission.
And the mastermind snapped right there. Whether Musk's intentions were pure or ego-driven, the harmony was gone. According to our sources, he resigned from the board in February 2018.
The official press release cited future conflicts of interest with Tesla's own AI work on autonomous driving.
However, the truth that spilled out in the intervening years was a deep and bitter ideological divide. The breakdown of this alliance set the stage for one of the most important corporate rivalries of the 21st century.
Absolutely. When a mastermind of this caliber breaks down, the members don't just walk away. They take the specialized knowledge they've acquired and apply it fiercely in different directions.
For Musk, losing control of OpenAI meant losing his primary vehicle to influence the trajectory of AI.
He was on the outside looking in. He needed to find a new way to strike back. Which brings us directly to how he handled the massive public and legal fallout over the next few years.
Yes, this is exactly where we see the application of Napoleon Hill's Lesson 3, Applied Faith. In a business context, Hill's concept of faith is not about religion. It is an active state of mind. Action is the first and absolute requirement of all faith.
Action versus passive faith.
Exactly. Hill argues that when a plan comes into your conscious mind, you shouldn't worry about optics or what others will think. You should simply take action.
Applied faith is about demonstrating your core belief through relentless, concrete actions in the real world.
And we see an absolute masterclass of this in the intense campaign Musk has waged against OpenAI over the last few years.
To provide the proper context for you listeners, let's dive into the legal filings coming directly from our sources.
Yes, let's. Musk sued OpenAI, Sam Altman, and Greg Brockman. The core of his lawsuit revolves around breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty, and unfair business practices.
And the crux of his legal argument is that the Mastermind Alliance's founding agreement, the promise to develop open-source AGI for humanity, constitutes a legally binding contract.
A contract he claims they broke.
Right. He claimed that by taking billions of dollars from Microsoft and keeping the architecture of models like GPT-4 completely secret, OpenAI has essentially become a closed-source, for-profit subsidiary of Microsoft. And his legal demand was radical. He wanted the courts to force OpenAI to return to its nonprofit roots and make all of its research open source.
Now, to maintain absolute neutrality based on our sources, we have to look at how OpenAI responded. They didn't just issue a PR denial. They went on the offensive directly with documents.
OpenAI released a cache of private early-era emails involving Musk.
The receipts.
And according to OpenAI's interpretation of these emails, Musk was actually the one pushing for a multi-billion-dollar funding mechanism right from the start.
Yes, the emails showed Musk realizing the massive compute costs, saying they needed a billion-dollar commitment to have any chance against Google. OpenAI argued that these emails proved Musk wasn't fundamentally opposed to a for-profit structure.
He was just opposed to a structure he didn't personally control.
Exactly. Their claim was that his lawsuit was just sour grapes stemming from a founder who left too early.
So you have this massive, incredibly messy PR crisis playing out in the global media. The tech press is scrutinizing every email. Musk is saying they betrayed humanity. OpenAI is saying Musk is a hypocrite who just wanted to be CEO.
So if we apply Hill's framework here, how does Musk handle this crisis? Does he just issue angry press releases and leave the talking to his lawyers?
No, that would be passive. He uses applied faith. To completely reshape the narrative, he responds to his belief in OpenAI immediately with action. While the lawyers are arguing over motions to dismiss the lawsuit, Musk quietly founds a brand new company, xAI.
He just starts from scratch, which invalidates the claims.
He recruits top-tier researchers from DeepMind, Google Research, and Microsoft. And he doesn't just release a mission statement. He puts out a highly complex product. He launches Grok.
But the true manifestation of applied faith, that move that shocked the tech industry, came shortly after. He took the base code of xAI's flagship model, Grok 1, and immediately open-sourced its base weights on GitHub.
A massive flex.
And we need to stop and think here, because we can't just gloss over the technical aspect of this. For those who only use ChatGPT to write emails or code snippets, let's ask, what exactly did Musk give away for free here?
This is a crucial distinction. Releasing the base weights essentially means releasing the actual trained neural network architecture. It's the difference between letting someone use your proprietary software online versus giving them the underlying source code so they can modify it, run it on their own servers, and build their own products on top of it.
It's giving away the recipe for the cake, not just a slice.
Exactly. And Grok 1 wasn't some outdated little toy model. It was a massive, 314 to billion parameter model.
Wait, let's define that before we move on. What does 314 billion parameters actually mean in this context? Let's explain that too.
Sure. Think of parameters as synaptic connections in a digital brain. The more parameters, the more complex patterns the AI can recognize and generate. For context, most open-source models available at the time were around 7 billion to 70 billion parameters. Releasing a 314 to billion parameter model for free was a staggering event.
It shook the entire open-source community. Furthermore, it used a mixture of experts' architecture.
Okay, let's unpack that jargon too. What is a mixture of experts?
Instead of a massive, monolithic brain processing every single question, A mixture of experts model is essentially a collection of smaller, highly specialized neural networks. They are experts. When you ask Grok a question, a router network analyzes your prompt and says, okay, this is a math question, and routes it only to the specific expert networks trained in math.
So you don't fire up the whole brain for a simple question.
Exactly. This means that even though the total model had 314 billion parameters, it only actively uses a fraction of them, say 25%, for any given prompt. This makes the model incredibly fast to run and highly efficient compared to dense models.
By suddenly giving away this massive technical asset for free and making this seemingly financially costly move, Musk demonstrated his applied faith in the philosophy of transparent AI.
He didn't just complain on social media about OpenAI being closed. He put his own million-dollar asset out there for the world to see, inspect, and use.
Absolutely. This action rallied a massive segment of the open-source tech community, including academic researchers and decentralized developers around him. It allowed him to shape the narrative through action rather than rhetoric.
He became the champion of the open-source movement overnight. This action gave Musk immense power.
Right. He positioned himself not as a bitter ex-founder, but as an active, practical advocate for transparent AI. To combat the narrative OpenAI was trying to build with those leaked emails, he used the sheer force of immediate action, not words.
It was a brilliant, aggressive PR move, but it was also a massive business decision. Because leaving OpenAI meant Musk couldn't rely on their infrastructure. Launching xAI meant he needed a new vehicle for his AI ambitions.
He couldn't just throw stones. He had to build a brand new house.
And what a big house it is.
Yes, he needed a laser-focused new mission, which transitions us perfectly into the next phase of this deep dive.
We are looking at Napoleon Hill's first lesson, definiteness of purpose.
Hill calls this the absolute starting point of all achievements.
Hill argues that before you can achieve anything of note, you must adopt a specific, major purpose, write out a specific plan to accomplish it, and focus your entire conscious mind on it every single day.
There should be no distractions.
It's about ruthlessly eliminating those distractions and channeling all your available resources, capital, and energy toward a single, clearly defined goal.
And when you look at xAI's founding charter and stated mission, it's almost comically broad, yet incredibly specific in Musk's mind. He stated clearly that the definiteness of purpose for xAI is to understand the true nature of the universe.
Quite an ambitious mandate.
That is its purpose, not to build a better customer service chatbot or optimize ad revenue, to solve the fundamental physics of reality.
And the first step in that specific plan was the creation of Grok. Modeling it after the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy wasn't just a quirky branding exercise.
Grok's unique design philosophy was to build an AI designed not just to regurgitate facts, but to answer almost anything with a rebellious streak and, more importantly, to suggest what questions to ask.
It was designed as an engine for scientific discovery.
Right. To push the boundaries of inquiry, to expand people's horizons.
But having a grand, philosophical purpose is just poetry without the harsh, physical infrastructure required to achieve it.
What we are seeing right now, in early 2026, is how Musk aligned his multi-billion-dollar heavy industry infrastructures to serve a single, definite purpose.
Which brings us to the monumental tech news of February 2026.
The official acquisition of xAI by SpaceX.
Yes, the move that completely upended the tech sector.
SpaceX, an aerospace manufacturing and space transportation company, officially absorbed xAI in a $1.25 trillion transaction.
A number that's hard to even comprehend.
So, what does all this mean? Let's break down this massive vertical integration move. Why would a rocket company buy an AI company?
Our sources indicate this was entirely driven by the unforgiving physics of compute and energy.
Exactly. The development of advanced AI models like Grok and the ultimate quest for artificial general intelligence, AGI, require exponentially increasing computational resources. As of 2026, the global AI compute demand hit a physical wall.
We are running out of power.
Terrestrial electrical grids cannot support the gigawatt-scale data centers required to train next-generation models. We are seeing massive power outages in regions hosting these server farms.
Furthermore, the massive amount of electricity needed to power these data centers is only half the problem. The other half is thermal management.
Keeping them from catching fire.
You need massive amounts of water and energy just to cool the servers so they don't melt. Musk, tied to his definiteness of purpose, realized that terrestrial infrastructure could not support this without causing severe environmental degradation and facing massive regulatory hurdles.
Therefore, his specific plan leads to an insane, sci-fi-level engineering solution. The SpaceX xAI merger is designed to bypass Earth entirely. They are going to put AI data centers in space.
A staggering way to bypass terrestrial constraints. In low Earth orbit, you have access to nearly continuous, unfiltered solar energy. You can deploy massive solar arrays unhindered by weather, atmosphere, or the day-night cycle. You can generate power directly at the source.
But wait, I mentioned earlier that cooling was a major problem. Most people might think space is freezing cold, so it can act as a massive heat sink for servers. But that's actually completely wrong, isn't it?
It's great that you bring this up because this is a massive misconception and the most fundamental engineering hurdle SpaceX is currently facing. Space is not a heat sink. Space is a vacuum. And a vacuum is an almost perfect insulator.
Like a thermos.
The exact same technology used in a thermos to keep your coffee hot. In a terrestrial data center, you use convection fans blowing cold air or pumps pumping cold water to carry heat away from the processors. In the vacuum of space, there is no air or water to carry the heat away.
The only way to cool a massive server rack in space is radiative cooling.
Literally radiating the heat away as infrared light. And radiating gigawatts of thermal energy requires absolutely massive, highly specialized radiator panels. This is a colossal thermal engineering bottleneck.
Absolutely. However, according to the plan outlined in the 2026 documents, they believe they have solved the material science problem of the radiators.
Their plan involves leveraging SpaceX's massive Starship launch vehicle. They aim to launch up to 1 million tons of server hardware and radiator panels into orbit annually.
Their stated goal is to build a 100 gigawatt space-based AI computing capacity by the end of the decade.
It's hard to even imagine this logistical structure. SpaceX builds the rockets. They launch the server racks. Starlink, their existing satellite networks, provides the high-bandwidth orbital internet backbone to bounce data back and forth with Earth.
And xAI writes the neural network code running on orbital servers. It's a completely closed, proprietary ecosystem.
But an ecosystem at this scale requires unprecedented corporate control. You cannot execute a trillion-dollar space infrastructure pivot if you are constantly hindered by activist investors or conservative boards of directors.
And that brings us to the legal maneuver that made this possible. Because court rulings over the last 2 years definitively shifted the balance of corporate power, we have to talk about the early 2026 Delaware Supreme Court rulings.
Yes. To execute a definiteness of purpose at this scale, Musk needed corporate security.
You might remember the Tornado ruling from a few years ago. A Delaware judge initially voided Musk's historic $56 billion pay package at Tesla, claiming the board was too beholden to Musk and didn't adequately protect shareholders.
This was a massive blow to Musk's control over his own companies. It threatened Musk's control and his ability to finance these massive future projects.
But the landscape shifted radically, with the passage of Delaware Senate Bill 21 and the 2026 Supreme Court rulings affirming it. Can you explain what Senate Bill 21 actually did?
It's crucial. Senate Bill 21 was a sweeping legal overhaul in corporate governance in Delaware, where most major American corporations are incorporated. It essentially created a legal safe harbor for controlling stockholders like Musk to enter into massive transactions and agreements with their own companies.
It protected them.
Yes, it severely limited the ability of minority shareholders to sue over claims of undue influence or breach of fiduciary duty.
When the Delaware Supreme Court affirmed the application of SB 21, it legally neutralized the precedent set by the Tornetta case.
It legally restored Musk's financial packages and gave him almost absolute immunity to steer his interlocking companies as he saw fit. It gave him the legal armor to act like a sovereign over his corporate empire.
The court rulings gave him the financial security needed to push forward with the SpaceX and xAI merger, so he could achieve the definiteness of purpose set by that merger without fear of lawsuits from stockholders.
But establishing a definite purpose, securing absolute legal power, and integrating physical infrastructure is only half the battle. You are still dealing with human beings. The messy part.
Always is.
How do you get tens of thousands of software developers, thermal engineers, and rocket scientists to hit these mind-boggling targets every single day? How do you maintain this intense momentum over years or decades without the entire system burning out?
And this brings us to our final analysis. Here, we are examining Napoleon Hill's final and arguably most powerful principle:
Cosmic habit force.
We need to analyze how Musk applies this to what analysts are now calling the Muskonomy. Let's define this principle, because, honestly, cosmic habit force sounds like a prog rock album from the 1970s. What is it actually talking about?
It sounds a bit mystical, but Hill grounds it deeply in practical psychology and observation of nature. Lesson 17 is cosmic habit force.
Hill describes it as a universal law that makes individual habits permanent.
A systemic force that maintains the balance of the universe.
Nature's autopilot.
Exactly. It's why an acorn automatically grows into an oak tree and not a pine tree.
In the human organizational world, this means we are creatures of habit, fundamentally and inextricably influenced by our environment.
It's not just about trying to build good habits through sheer willpower. It's about the physics of the environment you're in, imposing those habits upon you.
Absolutely. By consciously building the operational environment, you can make achieving your goals involuntary. Continuous actions mandated by the environment intensify until they become a permanent obsession that locks in its trajectory.
This raises an important question. How do you make the development of artificial general intelligence or the colonization of Mars a habit? How do you automate the invention of the future?
You do it by building an inescapable corporate environment.
Hill says every living thing is subject to the influence of its own environment.
Musk is known for creating highly specific, extreme environments across his companies. He frequently promotes what he calls a hardcore engineering culture.
We've all heard the stories of him sleeping on the Tesla factory floor during the Model 3's production hell, or imposing seemingly impossible high-pressure deadlines.
Biographies call this the burn the ships strategy, referring to a historical military tactic of literally setting your own boats on fire when landing on enemy shores, making retreat impossible. He constantly risks all his capital, public reputation, and the survival of his companies.
The most striking example of this occurred when he bought Twitter, rebranded it to X, and almost instantly laid off a massive portion of the staff.
He demanded the remaining staff commit to an extremely hardcore, long hours work ethic or leave. He intentionally creates a ruthless environment where the only focus is survival, forcing rapid problem solving.
Looking at the Muskonomy in 2026 on a macro level, we see him spreading environmental pressure across different industries through full vertical integration. It is a closed-loop system that forces innovation. Space infrastructure provides launch capabilities. Communications satellites offer a global, low-latency communication backbone. The AI lab supplies software and intelligence. And the robotics division provides the autonomous labor to embody that intelligence.
The success of each one feeds into the others as raw material or capital. a perfect self-reinforcing ecosystem.
Success in one feeds the other. Starlink subscription revenues fund the Starship projects. Starships deploy server racks into orbit. This system builds the capacity for xAI to train its unmanned vehicles and AI systems.
And those robots could eventually install solar panels or work in space. It's a complete physical feedback loop.
Exactly. By designing a corporate structure where relentless innovation, extreme risk-taking, and rapid engineering iterations become a daily necessity to prevent collapse, he permanentizes these actions. Musk roots the cosmic habit force across his entire empire. He makes the constant state of emergency the norm.
The ultimate goal is to take massive, long-term visions like developing AGI or building massive multi-planetary projects out of being an issue of willpower. They become the automatic and inevitable result of the systemic environment he built.
He isn't just trying to build the future. He is making the future the involuntary habit of his organizations. It's incredibly inspiring to see, but also quite unsettling, because he is taking Napoleon Hill's personal success philosophy, built for individual business people in the 1920s, to an industrial and even orbital level.
This is the ultimate stress test of these historical principles. Hill was talking about individuals gaining wealth and inner peace. Musk is trying to use the same psychological mechanisms to alter the evolutionary trajectory of humanity.
Okay, let's stop here and wrap up this amazing journey.
We explored Elon Musk's tumultuous early days, the conflicts during the founding of Zip2 and PayPal. This was a perfect example of Napoleon Hill's principle of personal initiative, thinking for yourself and acting without waiting for outside permission, even if it caused physical or boardroom crises.
We looked at the historic split at the founding of OpenAI, the disagreements over compute, and how this demonstrated the massive power and fragility of the Mastermind Alliance.
We then saw the principle of applied faith when he instantly founded xAI and immediately open-sourced Grok's massive 314 billion parameter base structure. He turned words into concrete technical actions.
And then we focused on the 2026 merger of SpaceX and xAI and the orbital AI data centers protected by SB 21 to bypass power constraints and achieve a definiteness of purpose.
And finally, we saw how he created a hardcore, self-reinforcing chain of companies to make his vision inevitable with cosmic habit force. It's been a massive deep dive. And as always, we want to bring it back to you, our listeners.
You might not be planning to launch a 100 gigawatt AI server farm into space tomorrow, or fighting with your cryptographer co-founder about an operating system.
But the psychological factors we talked about today are completely scale independent. They can be applied to your own career, your projects, or your life right now.
Look at your own environment. Are you taking personal initiative with your own thoughts? Or are you waiting for institutional approval?
Are you sure your mastermind alliances are healthy, that fragmented goals won't collapse your teamwork?
Do you have a definiteness of purpose? Or are you just reacting to outside noise? Are you in a passive observing position? Or are you an active creator?
These are the fundamental questions that separate passive spectators from those taking active action.
Before we close, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to ponder. This touches on our discussions about cosmic habit force and the unalterable power of the environment. Yes, we may have bored you a bit with some terminological words in this video, but believe us, we didn't want you to stay away from this topic while the future is being built. Write to us about what's on your mind and allow us to enlighten you in the ongoing process.
Napoleon Hill stated that the cosmic habit force is deeply connected to the physical environment that surrounds us. We are shaped by and adapt to the world around us. Think about this. If Musk's 2026 plan truly comes to life, and he leaves the Earth's environment, positioning the next generation of AI in orbit, in zero gravity, in the vacuum of space, fed by the raw power of the sun, what form will an artificial general intelligence inherently take when it evolves in an isolated space, fueled by entirely different environmental forces? Will its habits, perceptions, and even logic inevitably be shaped by the different environment around it? And when this mind, shaped in orbit, eventually shapes the future of Earth, how will humanity be affected?
Truly a scenario akin to science fiction. But as we see today, the line between science fiction and reality blurs day by day. Thank you for joining Catalyst Power. Stay curious. Take your own initiative. See you in the next episode.